Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be timing an FTE from scratch, throwing some fuel components on, having it right ready to go in the vehicle, and it's going to be really fun to watch. Let's go. So with the injector pump mounted onto the timing case, we took out the idler gear so that we could go and work out top dead center on the crankshaft and on the fuel pump. It's important to make sure that the camshaft is backed off and there's no pressure on the valves, because as you're rotating the crankshaft without the camshaft being timed, it will clash with valves.
There's a notch. You might not be able to turn it sure enough.
Pretty good, isn't it? Alright guys, so what we're just working on at the moment is getting the thing timed before we start putting everything else back on, so we know that there's going to be no hassles with, you know, valves and pistons clashing or anything. So basically we had to put the front case, we had to sit that front case back on and use the harmonic balancer, because that's where you find your slit for top dead center, and it's the same case for the fuel pump. You'll see here that there's a top dead center mark on the fuel pump there, and that's your top dead center mark for the crank shaft. So yeah, we did that. Now what's going on here and what we've worked out with all these marks is that with 2 turns of the crankshaft, that's 1 complete turn of the fuel pump. So if you think about in a 4-stroke engine, 720 degrees, so 2 full turns of the crankshaft is 1 piston's full cycle of 4 strokes. And if you think about how a VE pump works, I know this is electronically assisted, but the same principle applies, is that you've got a cam lobe with as many lobes as cylinders or injectors, and in 1 full turn, it goes through its cycle of 6 injections. So that's good to know. So that means that as long as we get the pump to top dead center and the crank to top dead center, it's as simple as that. You've timed your crankshaft and fuel pump, and then we'll be able to go and put the camshaft seal retainer on, time the camshaft, put our timing belt and tensor and all that on, seal up the timing side of things, and then get moving on to some other stuff. So here's an interesting fact about the FTE fuel pump for you. Unlike an ordinary VE pump, the FTE pump uses what's called an inner cam mechanism for fuel plunging. This mechanism involves the reciprocal movement of 4 plungers rotating inside a lobed cam. There are still as many lobes as injectors, but this mechanism reduces the slipping that the roller gets on a face cam mechanism and can achieve a much higher fuel pressure than a face cam. I absolutely will link this little manual in the description for you today, because it is an awesome little resource. I've already learnt so much just by skimming through this, so it is a must-have for working on an FTE fuel pump. All right, so now that we're sure, 100% sure, that we've got our crankshaft to top dead center and our injector pump to top dead center, we've got all of these bolts torqued up to spec and our power steering pump in. We can go ahead and put this front case on. So we've got our oil resistant black gasket maker, and we're going to line this front timing case cover with that, and then torque all our bolts to spec on that. Okay, so I'm just in the process of putting this oil feed from the vacuum pump that came off the old engine to the vacuum pump on the new engine. And you can see here, these are the washers that came off the banjo bolts, and that's why we'll be replacing them. It's really important to just check them because you can see there's lots of marking and scarring. This is a new washer, so we'll be replacing all the washers from the banjo bolts, and you can see here we've got an old one off the turbo as well. The turbo oil feed, that's no good, so we'll be replacing all of them. So something worth mentioning while you watch me struggle with this timing belt is that the camshaft actually dictates what stroke your piston's on. Without the camshaft, it's just a reciprocating piston. So this is an important one because if you get this wrong, you'll get valves clash with pistons, which is not ideal. But once again, the camshaft moves at half the speed of the crankshaft, 2 turns to 1 turn of the crankshaft. So as long as you've got the camshaft on top dead center, the fuel pump on top dead center, and the crankshaft, the harmonic balancer on top dead center, you're pretty right. But it is important to be incredibly accurate when you're putting this timing belt on because the clearance between the valves and the pistons is so minimal, especially in a diesel engine. Make sure you get that exactly on top dead center. Here's a handy trick if you are going to reuse the belt tensioner. You can very slowly press this hydraulic tensioner back down in a vise and then stick a drill bit through the holes just to keep it in place until you put it back in the timing case. She turns over. Beautiful. Still happy? Good.
On the mark.
Good.
On the mark. On the mark.
Excellent. Thanks for watching, guys. Tune in next week for when we turn the key on this beauty.